Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into a tech digest from June 20th, 2026. And let me tell you, the AI landscape is literally shifting right under our feet. Today, we're unpacking a wild sequence of events. We've got a Nobel laureate's sudden job change, a massive pivot in Microsoft's pricing, and a totally surprise AI release out of China. And the thing is, none of these are isolated incidents. They are all deeply interconnected symptoms of a massive, real-time restructuring of the entire industry.
So it all essentially boils down to this one absolutely crucial question. What actually happens when the world's most powerful AI models become just too expensive to run and way too political to deploy? Back in the early days of this decade, the bottlenecks in AI were pretty much entirely about scientific capability. Could we build it? But as this digest shows us in 2026, the game has totally changed. The barriers today, they're all about compliance, data sovereignty, and just astronomical compute costs.
To make sense of all this, we're going to hit 4 main points. First, Nobel talent shifts alliances. Second, agentic AI breaks pricing. Third, China fills the vacuum. And finally, the sovereign AI reality.
All right, diving right into Section 1, Nobel talent shifts alliances and the human stakes of the AI race. There is a huge, glaring irony happening in the industry right now. On one hand, Anthropic just pulled off a massive talent coup. They hired John Jumper, the computational chemist who co-created AlphaFold and literally shared the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry. Getting a Nobel laureate on your team brings a level of absolute prestige that no benchmark score can ever buy you. But, as Digest author Aaron Rose points out, here's the catch. Anthropic is stockpiling this generational, world-changing scientific talent at the exact same moment their flagship models, like Fable 5, are totally grounded. They are offline due to a U.S. Commerce Department export control order over a security failure. So, you can have all the Nobel winners in the world, right? But if your compliance house isn't in order, your models just sit in the dark.
Even with the intense competition, Google DeepMind CEO Damas Hassabis posted a really gracious farewell to Jumper, saying, "What we achieved with AlphaFold changed the world and showed the field what was possible with AI for science and medicine." And honestly, that perfectly captures the immense stakes here. AlphaFold predicted the structures for over 200 million proteins. It's used by millions of researchers. It proved AI could actually move the needle in hard biology, not just, autocomplete our emails. So Jumper taking that deep expertise over to Anthropic makes total sense, especially as Anthropic pivots heavily into AI for science infrastructure, wet labs, and major medical research partnerships.
But zoom out for a second and look at the broader impact on Google DeepMind. This isn't just one guy leaving, it's a massive structural loss. In literally a single week, they lost John Jumper to Anthropic, and they lost Noam Shazer, the co-lead of Gemini and co-author of the foundational Transformer paper, to OpenAI. They basically lost the defining figures of both their scientific and generative AI divisions to their two biggest rivals in a matter of days. That is a total seismic shift in the human capital that actually drives this whole industry.
Okay, let's transition over to Section 2, Agentic AI breaks pricing and the compute cost crisis.
If you take away one number from this explainer, make it this one, 1000x. A recent Microsoft research study found that agentic coding tasks, where the AI is acting autonomously instead of just answering a simple prompt, burn through roughly 1,000 times more tokens than a standard chat interaction. 1,000 times! That is an immediate aha moment. If you've been wondering why the industry's flat-rate pricing models are suddenly imploding, there's your answer. Agentic AI just burns compute like rocket fuel.
And that insane token burn rate is the exact reason Microsoft had to hit the brakes. Effective immediately, they are abruptly shifting their Copilot Cowork Enterprise agent away from a flat rate per user license straight into consumption-based usage pricing. Microsoft's executive VP pointed out that sure, users doing hundreds of autonomous tasks a week are super productive, but the infrastructure costs are absolutely crushing Microsoft's margins. Flat rate pricing was basically an illusion that only worked before AI actually became agentic.
So how do they fix those margins without just giving up on the tech? Well, to offer a cheaper option for these heavy, high-volume tasks, Microsoft is actually evaluating integrating DeepSeek v4. Now, this is a Chinese origin model, but it's a fine-tuned alternative that runs at roughly 1/6 the price of comparable frontier models. Microsoft's idea here is to make it an optional, lower-cost tier for their enterprise customers, fully wrapped up in Azure's standard security and compliance.
But wow, this is where corporate economics just completely crashed into geopolitics. Industry analysts are flagging this as a massively complex situation. You've got Microsoft, literally the world's largest enterprise software vendor, looking at a Chinese AI model simply because the US models from Anthropic and OpenAI are way too expensive for flat-rate agentic work. Azure compliance wrapper or not, this move sets up a huge potential clash between the corporate need for cheap compute and strict national security laws. It's quite the paradox, right? The US White House to shut down Anthropic over vulnerability, and right down the street, Microsoft is actively evaluating a Chinese alternative just to save their margins.
Which brings us right into Section 3. China fills the vacuum, and how a market can move in a matter of days.
The speed of this market is absolutely wild. Just track the dates with me for a second. On June 10th, the U.S. Commerce Department forced Anthropic's highly capable Fable 5 model offline. Fast forward just 4 days to June 14th, and a Beijing-based AI company called Z.AI ships GLM 5.2, a highly competitive open-source alternative. Z.AI obviously didn't plan the U.S. export control order, but man, they were perfectly positioned to just swoop in and exploit the vacuum it left behind.
And GLM 5.2 is definitely not just some temporary Band-Aid model. The specs on this thing are no joke. We're talking 753 billion parameters, but the real kicker is its massive 1 million token context window. That means developers can hold entire mid-sized code bases in memory all at once, without the performance taking a hit. You combine that kind of power with an MIT open source license and a price tag that's 1/6 of Western alternatives like GPT 5.5, and you've got the perfect recipe for immediate developer migration. And according to the Digest, that is exactly what's happening. Developers are dropping the grounded US models and flocking straight to this Chinese alternative.
And that brings us to our final point, Section 4, the sovereign AI reality, focusing on infrastructure and compliance.
To really understand the stakes here, we have to talk about data sovereignty. Technically speaking, it's the concept that digital data is subject to the laws and governance of the nation where it's collected or processed. Now, for months, tech companies have been arguing kind of theoretically that enterprises need AI infrastructure that sits outside of specific export-controlled jurisdictions. But it's not theoretical anymore. Developers who are migrating to these cheaper Chinese models are now interacting directly with infrastructure that is fundamentally beholden to foreign national security laws.
Industry analysts are really sounding the alarm here, calling this a massive data sovereignty trap. Because on the surface, developers and enterprises think they're just getting a really cheap, highly capable coding tool to replace the one the government just took offline. But beneath the surface, they are basically outsourcing critical infrastructure right in the middle of an AI Cold War. The Commerce Department grounded an American giant, and a foreign competitor immediately slid right into the vacuum.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a huge question to chew on while this landscape continues to fracture and rebuild itself. Are enterprises trading their data sovereignty just for cheap compute? When the true, fully loaded cost of AI is finally realized, what compromises are we actually willing to make just to keep the agents running? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will catch you in the next one.